Hey there, nerds. We're back with another episode of Two Nerdy Dads. I'm Jimmy Palmquist, and with me, as always, is Jason Applegate. Say hey, Jason.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
And there's Jason from the great state of Michigan. Oh. So, Jason, what do we have going on today?
Well, you found a bunch of really awesome stuff that just came out, so I'm really excited. Let's start with the Star Wars stuff. Let's jump right into that. Um, you let me know, like Star Wars anthology film may hire Iron Man or Kingsman directors. What do you think of that?
Well, before that news came out today, which would be Jon Favreau and Matt Reeves.
Yeah.
I'd heard a petition. I can't remember if it was a petition or just a rumor that George Miller was going to direct a Boba Fett movie in the anthology series. And as much as I liked the Mad Max movie, I kind of was nervous that that was real because I love what George Miller did with the action sequences and all that.
Mhm.
I'm just not sure he's fit for a Star Wars film. So when I got the news today that it was either Jon Favreau or Matt Reeves that could possibly be doing the Boba Fett movie, if that is in fact one of them, but definitely handling one of the anthology films,
Mhm.
I was like, you know what? I think Iron Man, the very first one, was fantastic. I didn't know much about Iron Man, and it really introduced me to him
Right.
and got me on board with everything that's followed. So it's really fantastic. And Matt Reeves, Kick Ass was an awesome movie. X-Men First Class was okay. I have a feeling that was a little influenced by the studio.
Yeah.
And then The Kingsman was quite a surprise. I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. So if either of those two directors have anything to do with it, I'm pretty excited.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
think
think?
I think of those three movies you named, I liked The Kingsman the best. I really thought that was sharp. Definitely both those directors are it seems more their forte to do, a Star Wars film. So I hear what you're saying about George Miller. But I went ahead and signed that petition that you sent me because I was like, I didn't realize it. First of all, I thought we had been so high off of George Miller last week and how awesome, we loved how much we loved Mad Max. So I thought it was like, hey, check this out, sign it. So I was like, okay. So I did. I just thought it would be cool because I think it would be unique. It would he would bring his style, he would bring vision to the Star Wars franchise and maybe give it a little bit of a twist. And I thought with Boba Fett, why not? I mean, certainly, um, I think he could do the. I think it would be interesting to do the landscape. Well, first of all, I would imagine the film would have to start. Well, maybe not. I guess my brain was thinking that the film would start with him coming out of the Sarlacc pit and it would pick up after Return. But I guess the rumors are that it's the origin story of Boba Fett, so maybe not so much. Um, I don't know. But I think you're right with this news. It certainly makes a lot more sense. It certainly fits a lot better, and isn't as much of a rumor, I think, or at least it's a more believable one. And then, did you hear that the rumor for the other one was Han Solo, that it might be a Han Solo film? Because I saw that somewhere, and I didn't know if you lent that any credence or if you just thought that's just nerds wishing.
No, I think good and bad. I think Disney's really exploring the characters that they can, let's say, utilize
Mm.
instead instead of take advantage of. I think Han Solo is definitely one of those, and it's hard to say anymore what's canon and what's not
Hmm.
in some of these other books. And I don't mean like what's canon, but what they would maybe pull from, because there is a Carillion trilogy with Han Solo that I don't even know exactly when it came out. It might have been before Jedi or maybe after Jedi, but it was definitely before any of the new movies came out,
Sure.
before the prequels. So, and they're fun adventures. They're more kiddish and stuff like that. But those things do exist. The Lando Calrissian trilogy exists. That'd be an interesting character to go. And if they go sort of the prequel style and get younger actors, they can have those actors interact in each other's films, because we obviously know Han Solo and Lando Calrissian had interactions before Empire Strikes Back. So that'd be kind of fun to see. You're obviously, I really hope they don't go the Jeff Bridges route in Tron and try and de-age Billy D. Williams and or Harrison Ford. I hope they recast and go younger.
Yeah.
So that would be cool. But we also have the other rumor about another trilogy that could possibly happen. Supposedly Disney is in talks with Ewan McGregor, and this immediately leapt to speculation that they might be doing an Obi-Wan Kenobi trilogy or film, but hopefully trilogy, which would be really cool because there's a lot of information we don't know between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. As the article I read said, Obi-Wan Kenobi hands a young baby Luke off to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and then we don't see him again until A New Hope, and he's obviously aged, and I believe in canon years it was 18, 20 years, something like that. So there's a lot of information there. I'd love to hear what happened.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting as well. I mean, with all three of those characters that you mentioned, Obi-Wan, Han Solo, and Lando, they imply so much about what happens, their relationships and things, that happen before A New Hope, that I think it's, it lends itself for you could fill in the blanks a lot there and have a lot of creative freedom, but still tie into why these characters are who they are. And so I think any of those would be interesting. Obviously, Lando wouldn't carry his own film, but be a part of the Han Solo story. How did he become the smuggler, and what was that life like? I think that would be kind of interesting as well. But I think of either of those two characters, I do kind of hope it's more of an Obi-Wan story. And I just think that might lend itself more to I don't know, just, I mean, lightsabers are cool anyway, so that might just seal it right there.
I think that would be cool. The other bit of Star Wars news that is actually getting me very angry, because I feel like it's manifested fake outrage or fake press, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, are you reading the Star Wars comic books at all?
I did read the first 4. I haven't read the issue 5. I think it just came out today.
It did just come out today, and spoiler alert. Sorry, okay. Jason.
That's all right.
On with me. Plug your ears. La, 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 la.
No, it's all good.
At the end, I'm assuming it's the last panel because I have not picked it up yesterday or today, but and today is Wednesday when we film. That has an image of Han and Leia, and there's a woman coming out of, I believe it's the Millennium Falcon, and she's calling him a liar, don't believe anything he says, and Leia's like, who are you? And she's like, I'm Mrs. Solo.
Really?
And there's like this huge outrage that it's like his wife, and it's a huge outrage. Oh my God, he's married. This changes the canon. I'm like, really? It's the last panel of a comic book. Have we ever done? It's the same thing as, we'll announce the winner right after this.
Right. It's a cliffhanger. Yeah.
It's like, seriously, why is everybody flipping out? I'm truly floored at this.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a comic book trope, right? You have the cliffhanger, and then in the next issue, she's some sort of con woman or something like that, or she's his sister-in-law, or who knows, what it is, right? Like, it could be a lot of different things. I'm sure it's not that he actually has a wife and goes from there. I hope that's not the case, but yeah, I think good for Marvel, right? I mean, people are talking about it, and that's what they kind of want. People are going to go out and buy issue number 6 next month. So have you read any of the issues? I mean,
I've read the first 3. I'm behind 2 of them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're solid. I really like them. I love where they picked up. I thought picking up after A New Hope and telling the storyline between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back is just great. I think part of that is due to that's, you know, I'm their audience, you're their audience, you know, the people that grew up with the original 3 films, and who prefer those. They're giving us everything that we kind of want, and teasing us and getting us excited for the movies that are going to be coming out, without giving anything away from those movies, because they could have picked up after Return of the Jedi and started telling stories from then on, and I think that would have been, you know, kind of a mistake. So I love them. I think they've been great. My particular favorite actually is the Princess Leia title, and I've been reading that, and the Darth Vader one too. And of the 3, the Darth Vader one's like, it's okay, but the Princess Leia one's really cool. So I like them. I'll have to check that out. But I think you're right. I think people are overreacting, and I'll be shocked if she really is. It reminds me of an old 50s Batman comic where the cover of it's hilarious because it's Batman and Robin like really close up, and you see this shadow behind them of a woman, and Robin's like, no, it can't be true, and Batman's saying like, yes, this is the way that it has to be, and it's this really sort of cheesy dialogue. Well, come to find out, it's in the pages, it's Bruce Wayne's wife, that, you know, this woman has married Bruce Wayne, and of course it's some silly ridiculous, you know, story where you know, Bruce Wayne was tricked into marrying her or something like that, and then of course they fix it all, and everything goes back to normal. So, you know, it's comic books do this stuff all the time. Let's not get so duped. I think you're right. People are too quick to get all fired up about something.
And that it actually makes me laugh because, like you, the first thing that popped in my head was, I mean, maybe way off. It's been years, probably 15 since I read it. I mean, this was almost high school. I believe the book was Truce at Bakura, the Star Wars book, and it was Leia had been betrothed to somebody for a long time, and Han had just found out, and there was like outrage that, oh my God, you're telling me you have an arrangement marriage and you never mentioned it? And Leia's like, yeah, I kind of forgot because it was, you know, I was 12 when it happened.
Right.
We've been fighting a war, and now he came to claim his betrothed. And I'm like, oh, okay, it was a good book, but that's what this kind of reminded me. I'm like, really, okay. Yeah. So, well, good. Anywho, staying with the House of Mouse because they own just about everything nerdy.
Right.
And we can thank 20th Century Fox for screwing this up, which is even better. There's some rumors that Netflix is going to be making some more Marvel TV shows. I guess we still call it TV, even though it's not really network stuff, but streaming video. And some of the characters they're going to be looking at are Punisher, Ghost Rider, and Blade.
Yeah, super excited when you shared that article. I was like, that is exactly what we all want, right? These sort of B-list superheroes, you know, they're not the heavy hitters. So putting them on the small screen, they've tried to put them on the big screen. At least 2 of those, right? Because Punisher and Ghost Rider, and who was the third one? Oh, Blade. Yeah, all 3 of them. All 3 of them. And really, of the 3, Blade was the one that was the most successful commercially. And so I think it's perfect for Netflix. It's perfect for that screen, particularly for those 3 titles. For it to be Netflix, it can be the mature audience title like Daredevil was, which I thought really wasn't terribly violent for the MA rating, which was nice because I was a little afraid they would get, you know how sometimes they just get really carried away with that and are like, let's see just how gruesome we can be. And I felt like it wasn't. It wasn't gross, you know, violent for the sake of violent. You know, Punisher, Ghost Rider, and Blade all have to be that same. They have to be in that same thread, you know? So I'm excited for that. I hope that that is, in fact, going to come about because I really think they lend themselves well for that. And I think also just the coolest thing about the Netflix series is that you can tell such a more developed story over 12 to 16 episodes than you can in a 2-hour feature film. And you saw that with Daredevil, and you can still, give the people what they want because they can binge watch it all in one, in one shot if they want to. And you can really do some good storytelling. And I think those three characters really could lend themselves well to that. You could retell the origin of the Punisher. I don't think it's been done too many times. I mean, geez, we've seen it for Spider-Man, a couple times already. I'm sure they're going to do it again the next time they tell it. And so I think that would be cool. Ghost Rider, same. And same thing with Blade. And I think it's been long enough really since those films even were, when they were, released. It's been long enough since then that there's a whole slew of comic book fans and all these Avengers fans and Guardians fans who are, ages 12 to, 20 that maybe haven't even seen any of those movies.
Yeah, and if you look the way they did Daredevil, they obviously told the origin, but it was, if I remember correctly, it was maybe 5 minutes. I mean, it was very brief when they show, the truck and all that, and it was the way they did it was almost Daredevil year one. I think we talked about that, so that it was him becoming Daredevil, so you really didn't need the origin story, so to speak. It was him coming into his own, which I thought they did fantastic. I really think Netflix can do this right because they did Daredevil very well. They've just proven themselves with other properties like Orange is the New Black, I think is fantastic. House of Cards. I think they're on their game with this. And I think you're right. I think there's I think it's only on YouTube, but there's a Thomas Jane Punisher clip. I think it's about 17 minutes. I might be lying. It might be only about 7 minutes, which is ultra violent, but it is what the Punisher is. And it's really what the movie needed to be. And it's not, when I say ultra violent, it's not just gory for gory's sake. It's who the Punisher is. The Punisher is not a good guy. Just because he fights bad guys doesn't mean he's a good guy. He's doing horrible things. But he's taking out horrible people, which in our mind is a good thing. But he really is a nasty vigilante. And that's how he really needs to be portrayed. And I thought both Fox Films, which is just weird how they handled that character. It's just weird. But I think Netflix can do it correctly. And thank you, Fox, for screwing it up. Thank you, Fox, for screwing up Daredevil. Thank you for Ghost Rider, because now Marvel has those, and they can do what they want with them. Please screw up X-Men just enough to get it back to Marvel.
I think they have both hands firmly grasped around those titles, which, from a financial standpoint is probably smart, but unfortunately from a creative standpoint, it just hasn't really worked out for us. But I think you nailed it. I really think it, and like we always say with everything, if the writing's good, then the acting can be solid. And you can go forward, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with all three of those titles. I think it'll be hey, the more Marvel that we get, especially I feel like in the Netflix, because I really think if they were announcing that these were going to be feature films again, I would be like, ugh, no, like let's just not. But I really feel that the Netflix releases just make for better storytelling, especially with, comic book superhero kinds of characters where you need that development. So I'm excited to see that.
I completely agree. We have one more little bit of news from the Mouse House. It's actually a Disney original film. I don't believe I sent this one to you, but I made a little video ranting about it, and I want to keep ranting and whining about it. That supposedly there's rumors that Tron 3 has been nixed, which is weird because it was never actually greenlit. And to be honest, I'm not so sure it's any different last week than it is this week. I think Tron 3 is exactly on the same path it was before. And by that, I mean, I think this will get made eventually. I just think Disney is sort of keeping it under wraps, so to speak. I think their biggest thing that they did is we had 30 years of no Tron, and I understand because the first one wasn't a huge success. But then at 2013 Comic-Con, I believe it was, maybe it was 2012, bam, all of a sudden we have test footage of Tron Legacy with Jeff Bridges, and it was amazing, phenomenal. And then we finally got the movie. Tron Legacy was a financial success. It wasn't huge, but it made its money back and more, especially worldwide. They got characters and all that, toys that they could make and stuff like that. So I really believe it's coming down the pike. I just think Disney is being smart in their releases because they have a ton of Marvel stuff, a lot of Star Wars stuff coming out. So I believe it's still a go. I do not believe it's tied to the financial failure of Tomorrowland at all. Let's be honest. Disney just made over $1 billion from Age of Ultron. I don't think they're hurting from the financial not success of Tomorrowland, which was, I think, it was $150 million. That's potatoes to that. So please don't freak out about Tron 3. Sign the petition to get the petition going. But I truly believe it's still going. Keep it up so that Disney knows there's fans there, but don't freak out. That's not necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked Tron Legacy, and I hope that they're doing a 3, but I don't know. I guess I'm more worried than you are. Maybe I'm just more of a pessimist. I think for me, it's that the longer that you wait after the Tron Legacy, reboot or whatever sequel, I guess, yeah, it's a sequel. It's not a reboot. The longer you wait after that, the less interest you have in it. And I wonder if it's just one of those things where Disney is just like you were saying, we've got all these Marvel movies, we've got Star Wars coming up, they feel that market's being super saturated. But I don't know. I think you're right in the tomorrow. Like, what does that have to do with Tomorrowland? Like, why, if Tomorrowland bombed, what does that have to do with Tron? That makes I agree with you there, but I'm just worried that if it's still stuck in pre-production and that limbo, it could be stuck there for a long time, and maybe we never see it, which I think would be a shame because I really liked Legacy and think that the whole franchise could be something that's really cool.
Completely agree. So we'll just have to wait another 30 years. We'll just dive our 70s. It's cool. It's all right.
We'll actually be Tron, by then.
Exactly. We'll be telling the kids, hey, what are they doing? What's that technology?
Right.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So to switch gears, and by that I mean just jump ship to Warner Brothers. This was quite a surprise because, in my opinion, and we've talked about this, Warner Brothers can't do anything right when it comes to a press release.
No.
And today they kind of snuck this one in, and I'm like, that's actually good news. I'm surprised. Well, not necessarily good news, but it's news, and it's about a big character.
Yeah.
But they announced that James Wan will be directing Aquaman. What do you think of that?
Well, I think I'm going to defer to you on this because you've seen the films that he's directed more than I have. I haven't seen Furious 7. And what was the other one that he's done?
I was surprised by this announcement because he's known for horror films.
That's right,
like
yes.
Saw, Insidious, The Conjuring, and I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
Now, I know he did Furious 7, and I haven't seen it. I've heard great things about it, but I haven't seen it myself, so I don't know. I can't judge that one. Saw and Insidious were good. I enjoyed them very much so, but they were sort of slow-paced, getting there to the end with a twist.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine that working for Aquaman.
No,
but there's no way that Furious 7 was slow-paced, building to a twist. No. So I gotta believe he can do action fine.
Yeah, I would think so, and I think what I can comment upon is the writer, and I don't have his name right in front of me, but he wrote 300, right, and then the sequel to that as well.
Yep, 300 and 300 Rise of the Empire.
Right, which I haven't seen the sequel, 300 Rise of the Empire, but I saw 300, and everybody loved 300. It was huge. Everybody, thought it was fantastic. I hated it. I hated 300. I don't know what it was. I don't know if I'm just Frank Millered out. After I didn't really like Sin City, and a lot of people like Sin City.
Zack Snyder too directing it.
I think it might have been if he didn't direct it, then he produced it. But But I think you're right. I think he did direct it because it was after Watchmen, right? Or was it before Watchmen?
We'll go to the tail of the tape here. Yeah, that's the just hit me when you said that. I'm like, wait a minute. So, and of course, Zack Snyder is producing all the
Sure.
Justice League tie-in films,
Right.
So it's not a surprise he'd be, if he's comfortable with the writer, that he would be doing that.
So here's two things. Here's my two thoughts on it. One is that, okay, if you look at the 300 and you look at Aquaman, you can see that writer can handle the sort of epic type of film, and Aquaman maybe take him back to his roots. You also have the Momoa Game of Thrones tie-in, and you see that we have that image of Momoa as Aquaman, where he looks like a biker, basically he looks tough and hardcore and grim. And you think, okay, well, that's what it's going to be then. Definitely. It's going to be action-packed. It's going to be in the vein of 300, and it's going to be dark and edgy and the rest. And I'm just sort of, I don't know. I'm just not excited about it at all. And maybe it's just because I'm not excited about that everything's the same in DC right now. Like, it's somebody, I don't know if I read this somewhere or it was a comment that a friend of mine put up, but it was like, what happened? I thought Batman was supposed to be the dark, grim, edgy one, and and it has a picture of Aquaman and Superman, the sort of clean cut, guys that we're used to. And I guess I just think back to Aquaman from, the Super Friends and, the blonde, clean cut, good looking guy Aquaman, not that Aquaman is going to sell his own movie. And the other thing I'm just not excited about and I'm worried about is that they had to explain who Aquaman was in the article. You know what I mean? Like they were like, Aquaman, blah, blah, blah. And they explain it in a way that definitely fit with what you could see the 300, the writer, that sort of take on Aquaman and the portrayal of it. Like, it's not going to be a guy talking to fish, everybody. Don't worry. And it's like, yeah, but I don't think this is really going to work either. I don't know. But do we want like the Entourage Aquaman, right? The one that's like the 20-something like teeny bopper CW version of Aquaman? No, you don't want it. Remember the television show that was in the pre-production that they were going to do, and I think it was going to come on CW back right after Smallville was kind of winding down, and they were talking about that being the next one, and it was going to, I think they even had a trailer for it, didn't they? Because they had somebody was the Black Manta kind of, they were implying he was going to be the one who becomes Black Manta, and I can't remember who it was. It was an African. Oh, it was I'm sure you can find the trailer on YouTube. So, if our listeners and viewers go check that out, I'm sure you can find it. But it was awful. It was just awful. And I'm
really hoping that we get the Justice League that teases or somehow has Aquaman in there, introduces it as that's the little bit of the origin story we need. And then while he's away from Atlantis, solving whatever problem is on land, that's where we get Orm taking over Atlantis, and then we have the Throne of Atlantis storyline, which to me was one of the best comic book storylines in the New 52 that wasn't called Batman. So I would love to see that. I think that was great, fantastic. Do that, Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I think so too. I just don't know if it's all the same. The other thing that I saw that was someone had tweeted out that Warner Brothers was saying, we're not making superhero movies, we're making movies about superheroes. And I just was like, first of all, what does that even mean? And secondly, like, you're making the same movie. That's what I'm afraid of, is everything's the same. That it's like, okay, here's Superman if he was Batman. Here's Aquaman if he was Batman. Here's everybody if they were dark and gritty. Even Wonder Woman is dark and gritty. And it's like, yes, do we want our superheroes to be BA? Sure we do. We want them to kick butt. We want them to be powerful. We don't want the Aquaman who's like, "Hi, fish. Seen any crime lately?" Of course not. But does he need to look like he was out of Sons of Anarchy? I don't think so. But I guess I'll reserve judgment. But I'm not excited about it at all.
I read the article where it was an executive at Warner Brothers got interviewed, and that's what he said, that yeah, our filmmakers are not making superhero movies. They're making hero movies about superheroes. And the article I read about it, I believe it was Badass Digest. I can't remember what they're called now because they changed their name. But they were referencing Mystery Men and the Sphinx character and how he would talk in riddles.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
they were saying the Sphinx would be very impressed with this executive the way he was talking in riddles. And I'm like, genius.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, that's great.
It makes no sense. Like, what do you mean you're not making superhero films? You're making films about superheroes. It's like, that's stupid. It's
Yeah,
so you're giving into the idea that these characters are just kid comics and you're going to make them adult and all that. It's like that. I was hoping that theory was long gone and comic books weren't just for kids, but I don't know, maybe people still feel that way.
Well, and that's been the biggest critique even of The Dark Knight Rises when that came out. Everybody loved Dark Knight, so there wasn't a whole ton of criticism of that one. But when Dark Knight Rises came out, some of the criticism of the entire trilogy in comparison to the Marvel movies was that they're not fun. They're not fun, and that's what superheroes and comic book movies should be. They should be fun. They should remind us more of the pages of a comic book with the splashes of color and all the the action and excitement and stuff like that. And that's the appeal, I think, of the Marvel movies. But I think that's also the appeal of Marvel anyway. I mean, if you look at just even those two companies, Marvel and DC, Marvel's always been, in my opinion, sort of more colorful, literally, but also figuratively more colorful. And DC has, at least its successes have been, sort of more edgy. But maybe I'm just such a huge Batman fan and think that carries the whole franchise anyway, that I'm being skewed by that. But who knows?
You're not wrong. I hate to say it, the DC, going to actual comic books, DC is finally coming out of the, sorry if you enjoyed it, but the stupid Convergence storyline to the normal, cool universe. And I guess I can't say normal because things have changed, but Batman 41 picks up right where he left off with Endgame. Did you read this?
I haven't
Joker? Yet. Oh, man, this battle between Batman and Joker is epic. And clearly it's not the last one because it's Batman and Joker, and they've been doing it for 75 years. So
right.
But it was epic. It was the battle to end all battles so far. So, but it was cool because they're picking right up. And you had said, well, it's not like Batman carries the whole DC universe. Like, yeah, they might be.
Yeah.
They might be.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. I haven't been able to finish. I haven't finished the Convergence series. I have them.
You don't have enough time. You don't. Throw it away.
Really
burn
don't.
it.
That is true.
It's firewood. You're in Michigan. It gets cold. Just burn it. It doesn't matter. It was so stupid. I read to 4, and I read some of the offshoots, and it was so bad and dumb. I hated it.
Well, I've read that far too, so I agree with you on that. I have not enjoyed it, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, it's like finishing your broccoli. Let's see, I only got a couple pieces left. I might as well just finish it off and see. I heard that
this is an intervention. We love you. We're here because we love you. Cut it out. Stop it. It's stupid.
Right. Well, have you read Secret Wars then? Have you read the first 2? Because the third one just came out today, so I haven't had a chance to read it.
I read some of the teasers from Free Comic Book Day, and honestly, Convergence kind of ruined everything for the Marvel aspect of it. But the 2 I read from Free Comic Book Day was the one about Deadpool, seemed really interesting. And it might have been the Hulk one. I can't remember what it was, but or maybe it was the Inhumans. There was another one that I thought looked really interesting, but definitely Deadpool looked awesome.
Yeah, I haven't read any of the spinoffs or anything. I've just picked up the 2 Secret War issues, which we're good. I mean, it's like they're doing it right. They're sticking to the formula they always do, like, you know, with Age of Ultron, and they did it with Age of Apocalypse and everything else, where they just are like, okay, here's this universe that might exist. Let's throw you in the middle of it, and then eventually we're gonna do what we want and reboot whatever we want to reboot, and things will go back to. But it still works, and it's interesting, and you actually sort of like care.
Yeah.
So
And that was my
I
main
like
problem
these.
with Convergence. It's like they set up a world in each comic, and we had to learn about this world, and then finally at the end, oh, and the shield came down, let's fight. And I'm like, God, we just had the same thing, different characters in this book.
Mhm.
Let's just fight. How about that? It
Yeah.
just got so annoying.
Yeah, so give Secret Wars a chance because it's better. I think it's just better written. Just the storylines, it's better.
I'll tell you
But
what, I will read Secret Wars if you don't finish Convergence.
okay, sounds like a deal. Sounds like a
Liar.
deal.
You're a
Yeah, I
liar.
am. I'm gonna read them. I bought the stupid things. I gotta read them now. I'll just put them in there angrily and shove it into the thing. So yeah. So
Don't
I
put
don't
it in
know.
a protected case. Do not protect that. Do
You don't
not.
think so?
Do
It's
not
not
save
worth
it for
it.
future generations. Don't.
All right, I won't. I'm just gonna throw it into
No
the
backer
pile.
board, no nothing, dude. Killing me, Smalls.
That's right. I shouldn't. You're absolutely right. I've got some Silver Age books I need to use those on, so I'll put those babies in there.
On the flip side, I just
Yeah.
read, I know I guess not devolving, we're evolving into comic book discussion. Read Ninjak. I don't know if you're a Valiant
Oh,
guy. You know I am.
yeah.
Ninjak, they're on the third issue, and it's a combo of James Bond, Deadpool, and Batman.
Really?
And I didn't know much about Ninjak other than him being on Unity and other teams popping up here and there. But man, he's a fascinating character. I'm really digging this story so far.
Yeah, that name though. I just it's straight out of the 80s. Ninjak.
Well, it's funny because they kind of explain it, allude to it, and I don't want to embarrass myself. If this was from the 90s, everybody knows who Ninjak is but me, and I'm just now catching up. But he's a government agent for sort of a freelance agent for Great Britain. And it's almost like Men in Black where they have Agent A, B, C, D, E, and they show him a list and there's Ninja A, and they reference it Ninja A. So then I'm like, oh my God, is he Ninja K? But it's somehow just now it's Ninjak, and I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, good for them.
Okay, I'll buy it. Whatever. I've never gotten into Valiant, and I do feel like it's something that I need to jump into. So, I'll have to give that one a shot. I think what I'll do is get it on the trade paperback though. That's the best way I feel like to jump into something new that you're not sure of, because I feel like if you buy the individual episodes and they're only or issues and they're only coming out once a month, it's easy to not be able to get into it. You know what I mean? Like you might enjoy the first issue, and then the second one comes out and you've got 4 issues in your hand already, and you're like, do I, unless the first one just blows you out of the water. And then but if you wait for the trade paperback and you can read a whole storyline, you can get hooked on that and then jump right in and where that left off, maybe buy a couple back issues and get caught up, and then really discover if you like it or not. And the reason I'm saying that is that Image, I have been enjoying a lot of what Image has been writing, but I've been it's been hard to keep up with all those issues, with all the storylines, and I can't decide which ones I really want to stick with and which ones I want to that need to just go by the wayside, because you just don't have enough time. And I'm not super wealthy or anything, so I can't buy, like, I can't spend $100 a week on comic books. It just doesn't work.
I totally agree with you, and I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit to our recommendations, only because we're talking
Yeah,
about it.
let's do it.
I'm a fan of having hard copy comic books. I am not a fan of trying to store all the hard copy comic books because let's be honest, they're not all collectible. Some of them suck. I have missed a large chunk of the Marvel Universe in the last 15 years from when we got out of college to, basically kids and all that stuff. Imagine that, kids taking up time.
Yeah.
So annoying. But so I got a subscription to Marvel Unlimited. I highly recommend anybody who wants to catch up on Marvel stuff doing this. Now, obviously, it's only Marvel, but that does include the Star Wars universe now. And by that, I mean the Dark Horse Star Wars stuff is now on there. So I would check that out if you're interested. Currently, I'm reading Civil War because I did not read it as it happened. Very cool. I went and caught up on House of M, the Messiah Complex. Because when I came back into comics, I caught it right as it was Second Coming with, of course, I just forgot her name.
Hope Summers?
Little girl that, what? Yeah. What?
Hope Summers?
Yes, Hope. Thank you. God, Hope. Yeah, I was like the little girl Cable was protecting. Yeah, Hope Summers, Second Coming. So I missed House of M. I missed Messiah Complex. I just knew Cable was having this little girl who was no longer a little girl. So it was awesome to catch up. They have comics going way back. I want to say early 60s. Sure. They had the Fantastic Four #1. I don't know if they had Namor or the early, what were they called? I can't remember their original name. The original name of comics, Marvel Comics. Oh, bummer. But
it's up
they had some of the very early books, so it was cool. But obviously, I'm more interested in some of the more recent ones. Sure. And then it was fun because I'm a huge fan of Age of Apocalypse. So I was going back reading some of those and breaking my heart a little bit because it's a little cheesy. And I don't know why comic book characters up to the 90s had to describe everything they were doing when it's like, why don't you draw it? We'll just see what they're doing. Yeah. Why do you have to say it? But anyway, it's Marvel Unlimited. I would highly check it out. It's basically a Netflix subscription. I think it was about $8 a month. And if you're like me or Jason, you read a lot, so it's well worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, very cool. Well, my recommendation then, I think, is going to be one of the Image books that I've been reading, and it's The Wicked plus the Divine. And it's I got the trade paperback of Phonogram, which I haven't had a chance to read yet, and that was their first like major storyline, the creators, and this is sort of their I don't think it's directly a sequel, but it's like a branching off of that. And basically the idea is that these pop stars are basically gods, and they're worshipped by society like pop stars kind of are, but they're actually like gods. They're imbued with these powers, and their music is actually basically like a drug to people, and so they go to their concerts and so forth. And it's really cool because it's got all this mythology, which I really love. I had to even look up some of these, these more obscure gods. And then the other cool thing about it is that they only are imbued with these powers for 2 years. And then after that, they die. Like it's their lives are over, which I think is really sort of, it just makes sense, with the whole 15 minutes of fame thing and stuff like that. So it's the storyline is a sort of murder mystery kind of thing where you have this this goddess who is her name's Lucy, and she's of course Lucifer, and they imprison her because they think that she's killed somebody by just snapping her fingers and their head explodes, but you're led to believe it wasn't her, and it's really, really good. But I'm gonna have to go back and reread it from episode 1 because I keep saying episodes, issue 1, because it's very complex. The storyline is really complex. And so I feel like I've lost a lot from month to month. You have to almost go back and have the previously on X-Men kind of thing happen so that you're figuring out, wait, what's going on? I forgot. But it is really well done. The writing's awesome. And the other thing that's great about it is the art. The art's just gorgeous. It's really, really beautiful. So I definitely recommend that.
That's very cool. I've been seeing a lot of people recommend that one, so I'll definitely have to check it out. I have not read it yet.
Yeah, another great one from Image. How about for the kids for family time? What is your recommendation for that?
Well, this past weekend, James and I went to an expo here in town called Level Up Expo, which was just a small gaming expo. They had video games and they had board games and card games. And it was interesting because James is very much into Pokemon. He loves Pokemon. He also loves video games. And when I say video games, I think of Pac-Man, Super Mario Brothers, Call of Duty. Like, to me, traditional, you're on a console video games. And I guess that's where I'm an old man. I got to wrap my brain around the idea that, no, like iPads and all that stuff, those have games on them, and that's what was there. And he loves Minecraft. He loves Angry Birds and a whole bunch of ones that I don't even know what they are. But it was awesome because this little expo had all that stuff. And it was interesting because most of the conventions we go to are like Wizard World or something where I'm the expert on it and I know this stuff. So he's sitting there telling me about every single Pokemon character. I have no clue. Some of this doesn't sound like English. I'm sure it's not. Unintelligible words just keep flying out. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, dude. Well, Daddy, who's your favorite Pokemon? It's like, Pikachu. That's the only one I know. So, yeah, I'm sure that's like the lamest one, but being old man me, I'm like, well, that's the name I know, so we'll go with that.
That's awesome.
And Higglypuff, I think, is another one, but that sounded even worse. So we'll do that.
That's awesome,
Yeah, so
though.
going to that expo, and I got to thank the coordinators at Level Up Expo. They were very kind to invite us at Nerdlocker to go, and it was very cool to share that with James and actually have James essentially share it with me because I was out of my element. He's the one that did most of the sharing, so it was very cool.
Cool.
How about you?
That sounds like a parenting win, I think, for you there too, buddy. That's awesome.
I'll
Very
take
awesome. Yeah, right? Recommendation. I saw Tomorrowland. And did you see that yet?
No, I haven't. I'm not sure I'm going to, but I haven't.
I think it's not worth seeing. But there's one scene in it where the character goes into this old retro like sci-fi store. And it's almost worth seeing the movie just for that one scene because all throughout the background there is all kinds of science fiction stuff. There's Star Wars stuff, there's Star Trek stuff. At one point there's a magazine of Black Hole. Do you remember that really bad Disney movie that came out? Do you remember the Black Hole?
You said bad. Maybe you have a different. Did you mean like fat, like PHAT? Is that what you were referring to? With
like Michael Jackson bad?
Are you
like
kidding me, dude? What is wrong with you? Bad.
Wasn't that like
no culture in Michigan?
That was like the first bomb, wasn't it? Like the first ever movie where they spent all this money on it and then it just tanked. Or am I wrong? Am I misremembering that?
You're very wrong. I don't know what you're referring to. In all honesty, I think Fantasia was a pretty big failure for Disney.
Really?
Yeah. I remember, I don't remember at the time because it came out before me, but I remember reading things that when Fantasia came out, they're like, oh, whoa, this is not what we thought it would be. It's pretty bad.
That's interesting.
And now it's revered, but
I was going to say it's pretty critically acclaimed now, so that's really interesting. Huh. Well, it just goes to show you. But anyway, that one scene's kind of cool because you just try, like your brain is trying to look. I mean, that's kind of, I guess, speaks to how bad the movie is that your brain's like looking in the background for all that cool stuff. But yeah, it was fun to go and see that. But I'd have to say, let's see, if my recommendation would be, gosh, you know what? Let me go to my parenting win because the recommendation's just skipping me right now. My parenting win this week is Cade and I finally watched Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I don't remember what inspired us to watch that. I wish I could remember what it was, but we had watched something.
How do you handle it? Because it's not a kid movie.
It's not. It's not a kid movie. It's rated PG, but really it's not PG at all. I mean, I don't think. I mean, especially the ending, the melting the faces off of them at the end is pretty gruesome. And that's why my daughter didn't watch it with us. She watched Anne of Green Gables with her mom, which is one of her favorites. So it was very gender specific viewing that day. But and I remember why we watched it was my father-in-law had the opportunity to interview John Rhys Davies, who is, of course, Gimli in Lord of the Rings, and that's what my son knew him from. And my father-in-law mentioned that, well, he's also in Raiders of the Lost Ark as one of Indiana Jones' comrades. And I was like, that's right. I totally, like, I didn't forget it, but it just, had gotten kind of filed away. And I was like, we should watch that. And so we did. And he really, really liked it and enjoyed it. And it was so funny how I was surprised how little he knew about Indiana Jones. Like the whole scene with the boulder rolling after him and that opening sequence. I was like, I know you've seen this referenced before. And he was like, no, not really. And I'm like, is that how old I am now that like even Indiana Jones references have kind of gone by the wayside? But I bet you he'll watch something in the next week or two and then realize like, oh, that's from Indiana Jones because it's such a classic.
Yeah,
but he enjoyed it.
I mean, even just getting in the cockpit, it's such a small scene, and there's like, what's this? My pet snake. I hate snakes.
Yes.
And you're like, okay. And then 30 minutes later, he's in a big pit of only snakes.
Yes. Yeah. So it was cool to enjoy that with him for the first time. So that was my parenting win. So maybe my recommendation is that find a movie that's from your childhood. And I know we've said this several times before, that you can share with your kids, and just make sure it's age appropriate, as always. But I was finally glad that we could get around to watching that, enjoying that together.
Very cool. That's definitely a good one. Yeah, people, I think, I don't know, maybe our parents were demented. I don't know, because I feel like I have always existed in a world where I know Raiders of the Lost Ark existed. And I don't remember, like Gremlins, I think that was even the movie that forced a PG-13 rating. But I believe Gremlins, maybe I wasn't allowed to watch. But like E.T., which has a pretty weird kind of horrific thing with this alien dying and really affecting you.
Yeah.
Jaws. I always remember knowing that Jaws was there. Yeah, and it's weird now that we're adults. It's like, so when do we show our kids this stuff? When are we? It's, I don't know.
Like, I think the difference for us when we were growing up, though, dude, was that at least for me, I remember seeing a lot of these movies when they were on television. When they were, and so they were edited for television, which means the melted face stuff was like taken out, or, the Jaws stuff, was some of the more violent stuff was edited out. And that's what we watched because, wow, I'm going to really date us here. Like, we grew up and there weren't even VCRs when we were kids, like our kids' age. When we were our kids' age, VCRs were not a common everyday. I remember the first time we got a VCR was when Top Gun came out, and we watched Top Gun on that. And then even after we had a VCR, it's not like we went to the video store and got videos every week. It was we guess what we did? We recorded stuff off of, television and watched it later.
But that's sort of the weird thing too, because yes, it was edited, but there was a conscious decision by our parents, because back then, yes, TV was expanding, but for the most part, we were still at the 5 channels.
Yes.
We were getting the HBOs and the stuff, but we were really at, ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, and usually some local channel that was kind of like the CW is now. So there was this conscious decision with like ABC movie night. I think it was on Sundays, where the family would sit down and watch the movie. That means your parents knew what you were watching, versus today, you don't always know what everybody's watching, just because there's so many I mean, there are many times where we've come up on Madison, who's 6, and somehow she's gotten the tablet onto YouTube, and she's watching My Little Pony or something. But it's always in the back of your mind. It's like, how the heck did she get on that? How did she even know it was there? It's like, just click something, and she got there. She could be watching, I don't know, Night of the Living Dead, for all I know.
Right.
No, we're not those kind of parents. It's locked. It's cool. We're all right. But, they have easier access to get to these things nowadays.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about that. Absolutely. Absolutely. But anyway, it's kind of funny to think about how much media has changed and how much more accessible it is and how much more careful you have to be as a parent. But that's the way it goes.
Well, very cool. Indiana Jones. I love it. Oh, I love it. And hopefully we'll get some more now that Disney owns Lucasfilm.
Yeah, reboot that baby. Get Harrison Ford out of there.
Yes, and it's not Harrison Ford's fault. Everybody gets old. No more Shia. I don't know if Shia's not the worst thing. People hate him. I don't think he's out that bad, but no more Shia.
No, we don't need that.
Anyway, any more nerd stuff?
Unless you have like a parenting fail that you want to share, because those are always fun.
I never fail ever. Ever. Like where I just said that Madison, my 6-year-old, was on YouTube watching things I had no idea. That was a story from somebody else, a friend of a friend that I just happened to know. It's not me.
Right. You just didn't want to throw your friend under the bus, so you just adopted that as it was your own story. That makes sense.
His name is, I will not mention his name, Kyle.
By the way, isn't there?
I'm just joking. We have a common friend named Kyle, so it really is not Kyle. I'm just throwing him under the bus for fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's awesome. Yeah. So I mean, a lot of news this week that we were able to cover, and we got a little bit back to the recommendations and the parenting wins. So that's cool. We'll have to keep those up, and we'll have to get a parenting fail, I think, in next week somehow. To think back, I'll look back in the last month or two and see what it is that I could pull out as a parenting fail, because I'm sure somewhere I've like burnt some toast or something that we can use in that segment. But cool.
I'm sure in the next week I'll have one because the kids are out of school, so I'll have more time with them.
That's
so I'm sure the odds are in my favor that I will screw up somehow.
That's right. That is probably true. Like maybe you'll forget to pick them up from school or something like that on the last day, or wake them up thinking there was school. No, you won't do that because
do that just for fun.
That's true. That's a parenting win, I think, not a parenting fail. All righty.
Most people.
Well, I think that wraps up this week, bud.
Say what?
I said I think that wraps up this week.
I think so. So nerds, check us out. 2 Nerdy Dads on YouTube, on Facebook for Nerdlocker, Instagram for Nerdlocker, Twitter for Nerdlocker, nerdlocker.com. And Jason, what do we say?
Have a nerdy week, everybody.